The movie begins in 2014, when global warming had worsened beyond normal levels and started causing serious problems across the planet. To save humanity, scientists developed an artificial cooling agent and released it into the atmosphere over major cities. A total of 79 countries approved the project, and the scientists began implementing it. At first, the experiment was a success. Temperatures started dropping to the desired levels, but they didn't stop there. Instead, they kept falling uncontrollably. As a result of the extreme cold, countless people died. Only a small number of survivors remained, and they found refuge aboard a high-speed train. 45 years later, we are introduced to Curtis and his friend as they gather to listen to the latest instructions from the train's security forces. We learn that the train is divided according to social classes. The front cars are reserved for the wealthy, while the rear cars are occupied by the poor. We then see Curtis secretly organizing a revolution against the train's ruling system because the people in the tail section suffer from oppression and constant abuse by the authorities. He tells his friend that he has remained silent and endured their mistreatment until the right moment arrives to strike back. At that moment, the train's cook arrives and begins distributing food. We learn that the food they eat comes from an unknown source, and nobody knows what it's made of. However, the passengers continue eating it because they have no alternative, and it contains the proteins and vitamins they need to survive. After the food distribution ends, the guards return to their section. Meanwhile, Curtis starts questioning the passengers, asking whether anyone found anything unusual in their food. Eventually, he reaches a woman who tells him that what he's looking for is hidden inside her son's food ration. Curtis takes the food block and cuts it open with a knife, discovering a piece of paper hidden inside. When he unfolds it, he finds the name, Nam. We then learn that Nam is a security specialist who is currently imprisoned inside the train. Later, Curtis goes to Gilliam, the oldest and most respected person in their section. He tells him about the note, and explains that they must free Nam. However, the prison is 3 train cars away, and every door is heavily guarded. Worse, each gate only opens for 4 seconds before immediately closing again. Curtis asks Gilliam to come up with a solution because the success of their revolution depends on rescuing Nam. They also discuss the guards' cruelty and the need to kill Wilford, the creator and ruler of the train, since he is the only one capable of controlling the engines and opening the gates. Curtis tells Gilliam that once the mission succeeds and Wilford is eliminated, Gilliam should take over leadership of the train. Edgar disagrees, insisting that Curtis is the one who deserves to lead because of his courage and because he sees him as a role model. At that moment, security officers enter the train car and order everyone to gather their children for a routine medical inspection. Soon afterward, one of the officials arrives and announces that the insult directed at a nurse will not go unpunished. She explains that the train operates according to a strict system based on order and discipline, and anyone who disrupts that order will be executed. Before she leaves, Gilliam approaches her and asks her to inform Wilford that he wants to meet with him. Meanwhile, Curtis continues preparing for the revolution. He instructs his allies to stack the barrels stored in the room on top of one another, believing this will help them breach the gates and reach the prison. The group follows his orders without hesitation. Curtis then closely observes the guards and tells Gilliam that the weapons carried by the security forces are unloaded. He explains that the last bullet was fired 4 years ago and that the way the guards carry their guns clearly indicates that they are empty. According to him, the weapons are being used only as tools of intimidation. Gilliam replies that he hopes Curtis is right because he doesn't want to risk the lives of everyone involved. Not long afterward, the day of the operation finally arrives. Curtis approaches one of the guards, places a gun against his head, and pulls the trigger. The weapon clicks harmlessly, proving that Curtis was right all along. The gun is completely empty. With that confirmation, Curtis and his followers launch their uprising. They attack the guards, force their way through the gates, and use the prepared barrels to advance through the train. They successfully eliminate every security officer who stands in their way. Eventually, they reach the prison and make their way to Nam's cell. Curtis tries to wake him, but Nam is unconscious due to the powerful drug he has been using. Curtis takes some of the substance and lets Nam inhale it, causing him to regain consciousness almost immediately. Curtis asks if he is the engineer responsible for designing the train's engine systems, then requests his help in stopping them. In exchange, he offers Nam a piece of the drug for every engine he disables. At first, Nam doesn't understand what Curtis is saying, so Curtis uses a translation device to communicate with him. Once Nam understands the plan, he agrees to help. In return, his daughter Yona will be allowed to accompany them, giving him a chance to rescue her from the mistreatment she has been suffering under. Curtis agreed, and Nam began opening the gates and shutting down the engines and the train's security system. He opened the first gate, which was the police car. When people stepped out, they were shocked to see sunlight for the first time in 10 years, as they had been living inside the train without seeing anything. They also noticed that the entire city outside was completely frozen. After that, Nam started disabling the second gate, which led to the kitchen. There, they saw their friend Paolo, who was responsible for preparing food for the train. As soon as people saw the food, they rushed in and started eating frantically. But Curtis went to the cooking area and discovered that the pot was full of insects, realizing that they had been eating insects all these years. Curtis became furious and went to Paolo to hit him for making them eat such filthy food, but Paolo defended himself, saying he also ate the same food. Curtis believed him. Then Curtis pulled out the food pellets and asked about their source and who was sending them, and what the written messages inside meant. Paolo said he didn't know anything about them, and that an unknown person used to bring him these pellets and tell him to put them in the food. Curtis opened one of the pellets and found a note inside that said, "Water." He realized that Wilfred's plan was to control water, and therefore control food as well. He told his friends they didn't need to go to the front of the train to take over Wilfred. Instead, they had to head to the water car to control food and water and ruin Wilfred's plan. Everyone agreed. Meanwhile, Nam was opening one of the gates while Yona and Curtis stood in front of it. Yona heard a sound behind them and begged her father not to open the door, but time ran out and the gate opened. They were shocked to find security forces waiting behind the door, who immediately attacked Curtis and his group. A violent fight broke out until they reached the city bridge, which the train only crosses once a year. Curtis realized that another year had passed inside the train. They had now reached year 46. The police chief saw the ice at the end of the bridge and started shouting through the radio, ordering all passengers to lie down to avoid dying. Everyone obeyed except Yona and Nam, who were standing by the glass, enjoying the view and unaware of the danger due to the drugs they had taken. After the train successfully crossed the ice, Mason appeared to the passengers and told them that Wilfred had been very generous with them and saved their lives by allowing them to live on the train for free. But now, that time of generosity was over. Curtis became angry at her words and threw a knife at her to kill her, but a soldier saved her at the last second. She then told the passengers that time was up. We then see the security forces wearing night vision goggles as the train enters a dark tunnel, plunging everything into darkness. The guards began killing people who couldn't defend themselves because of the darkness. Mason enjoyed the scene, but she noticed some passengers returning to their carriage carrying fire torches and launching an attack on the guards, killing them. Mason tried to escape, but one of the passengers grabbed the police chief and threatened to kill him unless she surrendered. She didn't care and told him to kill him, and he did. Curtis then attacked Mason and stabbed her in the leg, but one of the guards attacked Edgar and threatened Curtis, saying he would kill his friend unless Curtis released her. Curtis was forced to sacrifice his friend. Mason then ordered the guards to stop the attack and the killings, and they obeyed her. At that moment, Curtis began interrogating Mason about his daughter, but she said she knew nothing. All she knew was that Wilfred had asked a nurse to come to their section and take children from it. Curtis told her he wanted to contact Wilfred, or he would cut off their water supply after taking control of the water car. Mason laughed and told him he misunderstood. The water car is actually the first car used to store and recycle glacier water because of the engine heat. She added that she could take him to Wilfred, but only if he promised to spare her life and not harm her. Curtis agreed. At night, Curtis went to Gilliam and told him everything Mason had said. Gilliam asked him to abandon the revolution due to the lives they had already lost, but Curtis refused and said he would go with Mason to meet Bill, Wilford's assistant, without any bloodshed. Gilliam advised him to kill Bill immediately upon seeing him so they could take control of the train and become the ones issuing orders. Later, we see Curtis, Andy, Tanya, and Carrie, the guard assigned to Gilliam, traveling with Mason as they move between train cars to reach Wilford. They arrive at the fish farming car and sit with Mason, eating sushi. Mason says they eat sushi only twice a year to maintain the fish population. She tries to start eating, but Curtis shouts at her and orders her not to eat it. He then gives her insect-based food and forces her to eat it, which she does. After that, they arrive at the childcare car, where Tanya and Andy show pictures of their children to the kids and ask if they have seen them. One of the children tells them he saw them passing through that door. At that moment, a TV screen broadcasts a report about the train built by Wilford, which circles the world at a length of 438,000 kilometers. It explains that Wilford was the only one who predicted the failure of the scientists' experiment. The report also reveals that the train was designed to save humanity from extinction, and after it was built, 7 people attempted to escape it and return to Earth in an attempt to adapt to the freezing conditions. But after a few hours, they froze and died. At that moment, a man arrived carrying a large amount of eggs and distributed them to the children. Curtis took one egg, and when he opened it, he found a small capsule inside. He opened it and discovered a note with the word blood written on it. Suddenly, the man in charge of the children and his group pulled out weapons and started shooting at the people. The caretaker of the children also killed Andy. Curtis ordered Cray to kill the caretaker, and he managed to throw a knife and take her down. At the same time, the train's TV screen showed a video of Dylan being killed, and it was announced that he had died. When Curtis saw the video, he was completely shocked and broke down. Tanya tried to snap him out of it and hit him to bring him back to his senses, telling him they had to continue the plan and avenge their friends. He then went to Mason and killed her, before heading toward the front of the train where he faced Frank and his soldiers. However, they managed to escape into the next car. Frank opened fire on them, trying to hit anyone he could, but he eventually ran out of bullets. He chased them trying to finish them off, but Carrie attacked him. Frank, however, was stronger and killed him easily. Then he turned on Tanya and killed her as well. At that moment, Curtis arrived and attacked Frank, killing him with a knife in revenge for his friends. After that, he moved toward the final car of the train, the Wilford car, where he met Nam and spoke with him. Nam told him they had to take revenge on Wilford, who had tortured them brutally, pushing them to the point where they were forced to eat each other because of starvation. Nam explained that in a moment of desperation, he had killed his friends and eaten their flesh, and now felt completely inhuman. He believed this madness had to end at the last car, the Wilford car. At a time when people were on the verge of cannibalism, Dylan had come and saved them, but he had sacrificed his arm and leg, giving them to the survivors. Curtis was deeply moved by this and decided to enter Wilford's car and kill him. However, before entering, Nam told him he had discovered something important. Life outside the train was not deadly as they believed. When the earth froze, a plane had crashed and been covered in snow, but today he saw it inside the car and noticed the snow had melted. This meant life would soon return to normal and the earth would warm again. Nam then pulled out drugs from his pocket and revealed that he was not actually addicted. He had only pretended in order to get access to them, because the substance was actually explosive material being collected to blow up the train door and escape. At that moment, Wilford's door opened and the nurse came out. She struck Nam on the head and knocked him unconscious, then told Curtis that Wilford wanted to see him. Curtis entered. Inside, Wilford welcomed him and said he was the first person to ever travel through the entire train and reach the end. He also told him that his revolution was the most successful uprising in history. Wilford then revealed that he had designed the train as a complete ecological system, and that he had always expected something could eventually damage or shut down its engines. So he created this system to maintain balance and reveal the true structure of society. He explained that the last car, the one they had been living in, was meant for the poor and weak. He also admitted that he had used the revolution to reduce the population inside the train, because resources like food and water would not be enough if the population kept increasing. He said he had been aware of Curtis's every move, and that Dylan had actually been part of the plan. The revolution was supposed to end when the train entered the tunnel and the guards killed the passengers, but Dylan tried to seize control, so Wilford had him eliminated. Curtis was devastated when he heard this and shocked by Dylan's betrayal. He realized everything had been part of a controlled plan to reduce the population inside the train. Wilford told him not to be upset, saying he was old and needed a brave successor to take over the train, and that Curtis was the best candidate. At the same time, Yona was preparing explosives at the train door with Nam to rescue Curtis. But Nam noticed a group of people and guards approaching to kill them. Yona managed to open the door at the right moment, knocked the nurse unconscious, and took the explosives. She went to Curtis and asked him to light the fuse to destroy the door, but he told her there was no life outside the train and staying inside was better. She was shocked. Suddenly, she felt vibrations in the ground and began searching for the source. With Curtis's help, she lifted part of the train floor, and they were shocked to discover that Tanya and Andy's children were inside, manually operating the train engines. Wilford revealed that he was using children to run the engines because there wasn't enough fuel or oil to keep the train moving. Curtis snapped in rage, attacked Wilford, and beat him. He then went to the engine room and stopped the machine with his bare hands, freeing the children. After that, Yona took the explosives and blew up the train door, triggering a massive avalanche that caused the surrounding ice structures to collapse and forced the train off its track. In the end, we see Yona, Nam, Curtis, and the children surviving and escaping the train, stepping out onto the surface of the earth. Yona then spots a polar bear, realizing that life outside was never truly dead, and that they had been misled and used inside the train. And so, life returned to Earth after many long years of destruction, marking the end of the film. Thank you for watching.